And this special called meeting, I thank you for those that are here, participate in this community, in the school system. I pray, Lord, that you'll give us discernment in all things, give us a sense of humility and peace and understanding in all things. We ask that in our Lord. Amen. All right, please stand. We're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, and justice for all. Thank you. You can be seated. Thank you. Your mics are hot. You need to watch it later. Okay. All right. Board members, you have the agenda in front of you tonight. We need approval of this special called meeting, February 5th, Monday. Approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion to approve the agenda as you've seen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Dr. Blevins, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion's carried. Have an approval of the special call training session open minutes for January 20th that we had, very informative. I need a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion with Dr. Blevins, is there a second?
Second.
Second with Jennifer, and any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hearing, none opposed, motion carries. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Public information, Global Learning Academy presentation discussion. Mr. Foster.
Mr. Shears will be with you also.
Mr. Bashirs also, absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Y'all have it. So what we've done while Mr. Shaw's pulling it up, we've compiled, basically what we thought would address most of the concerns that you guys may or may not have with GLA. We've talked about the financial impacts. We're gonna spend a few minutes going over the ADM salaries, NCBPS, that's North Carolina Virtual Public Schools, which is what our high schoolers use exclusively for their classes. And then any other miscellaneous stuff. We're gonna talk about testing data, because one of the big things with our school performance grade, it is a D, but a lot of people don't understand what goes into a school performance grade. So we're gonna take a few minutes to help you understand our kids and why we have a D as a performance school, performance grade. But we're gonna talk about growth, proficiency, strategies for improvement, and then we're going to talk about our proficiency predictions, which indicate growth, what we can expect with EBOS data for student growth. And then we're going to talk to you a little bit about our IEP and 504 kids. Lastly, they did mention, or y'all mentioned, that you were concerned about attendance. So we're going to go over how we do attendance, what our attendance numbers look like. And then with our high school, we've changed how we do attendance this spring. So our attendance is actually in a much better place than it was last fall, which will also attribute to kids getting more work done and doing better. Test. What am I looking for? Thanks.
Mr. Foster, you understand, you have more than 3 minutes tonight.
Understood. Now,
Slow down.
I will also talk in public.
I'm just saying, for our benefit, you might want to.
I will decrease the speed tonight. We have a,
Feel free to breathe and that kind of thing.
I got you. I'll have to talk a little quick in public for
skill set, but we want to.
No, I
We
understand.
want to hear everything you have to say, okay?
I was told I sounded like an auctioneer or someone reading their tablet on like 3x speed.
I just wanted you to make sure this is what we call the meeting for, so we want to make sure everyone's voice is heard.
Okay, so the big thing, and we don't disagree, we're in an untenable financial situation right now. We are, if we're going $500,000 in the hole, something's got to be figured out. But we feel like GLA and what it offers to our kids and our families is a worthwhile, and we're going to call it an expense, not so much a loss, but it's something that we feel like if we're investing in our kids, we're offering something that a lot of bigger school districts offer that most small districts might not have. We're offering our kids a chance at remote education. So up here, you see the district ADM. That's about how much money we spend annually per kid. So this was kind of a tough figure to get anywhere in the ballpark. The most specific figure that I got was about $11,600. So again, this is the amount we look to spend per kid. We don't actually see every dime of that for GLA. So again, if we have 60 kids in GLA, we don't get $600,000. That would be sweet, but that's just not the case. That goes to a lot of things throughout the district. Since we only account for about 4.8% of the district enrollment, we're not going to get some crazy figure of that. There are some things that come out of the ADM that have nothing to do with our kids. Our kids don't have any building expenses, custodial. So there are, $2,000-3,000 taken out of what should be spent on our kids in some capacity that are taken for expenses that don't have anything to do with them. Because we benefit from the fact that we don't have a building, we don't have an electric cost other than these teachers, house bills to get their internet and address their children every day. So our salaries, mine is just a stipend because mine is tied into Elkin High School and Elkin Middle School. So I have a small stipend that's in there, but the salaries for our 4 full-time middle school educators, a part-time counselor, and then our data manager is $417,000 and some change. NCVPS costs, that's what we have spent so far this year exactly for our high school students to take their online classes. It's $76,000. It's $349 a class. We'll talk shortly about how we can reduce that figure. We did some napkin math just today, and this semester alone, we probably could have saved about $1,500 by having co-teaching offerings for our high school kids. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Last semester, it would have been in the $3,000 to $4,000 range. So we could have offset some of those costs by utilizing our middle school teachers to co-teach some of those classes. So the cost differential between, and again, that's the figure on the right. I can't tell you what all that necessarily means. That's just pots of money. This is stuff that we were able to pull from finance. So I appreciate them working with us on a very short timeline. The cost differential with what GLA comes as an expense to the district is $147,000. And that does include money that we get for students with IEPs. We get $5,300 and some odd change per students that do have individualized education plans. So we included that in our pot of money, but we stand to be an expense of $147,000. So we understand that is a big number. But again, we are investing in kids. I don't want to make this a business, but we are investing in our learners. So you see at the bottom, it does not include our out of district tuition either, which I'll talk about in the next slide. Do you have anything?
I think we just want to be understood in that what we do is more than a line item in a budget. Because when you look and you go down through the budget, there's not a line item that says GLA, revenue and expense. There's not a line item that says that. There are plenty of other line items, but there's not a line item that says GLA revenue, GLA expense. There are teachers, there are administrators. I'm just a teacher. I am not a finance professional. But it doesn't take it when you start looking at historical data, we as a district, for our allotment for money, 2021, right? 2021, we had close to $4.2 million allotted for teachers. That's not a number Lane Bashir's made up. That's from the great state of North Carolina. 22-23, our allotment is roughly 4.2 million. We've decreased funding. We've had funding decreases. Not only funding, we've had positions decrease from 60 teachers allotted down to about 54. Right? So when you factor that in and you look at the numbers, as a teacher, $147,000, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to me. When we look at it in perspective and look at it in context, we have over a $10 million budget for Elkin City Schools. We're looking at roughly 1.6% of that as an expense, not as a loss, 1.6% as maybe an extra expense. If I had $100, now I can relate to $100. If I had $100 in my pocket and you asked me for $1.60, here's two. Keep the change. That's the way I have to look at it. You know, we're not, myself and my colleagues, we are not financial. That's not our strength, or it's not mine. We're teachers. Good teachers. Good teachers. So when we look here, let's look beyond all we're wanting you to see. Yes, there it is. But we're part of a district. And when we say our students and our district, we take ownership in that and do what's best for our students and our teachers, our community. We're taking that ownership. So yes, there is a cost differential. There is an expense. But anything we do as a district, there's an expense. There's an expense. But we're more than just a line item. I think that's what we really want to try to drive home. We're more than a line item.
And it was 4.4 million in 2022, but that's for the $200,000 difference. I mean, we spent 20 minutes looking on the NCDPI state allotment site, and you can look at figures from 5 years ago up until now, and you can start comparing. There are corners to be cut, there's fat to be trimmed, but again, we don't think it necessarily needs to be our GLA program.
Yeah. Pete.
Yes, ma'am.
The two, Johnny and I were just talking about this. So the 147 and then the 171, both the two that are in red. Explain, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, what's the-
So the 171, 172, that's if you exclude state allotted IEP money. So we get, and I've got 5 copies of this, Mr. Bashir's, if you can. What this does is this just shows you, remember how we spoke about how many PRCs there are that money comes out of? PRC 032 is money that the state allots for individuals with students with individualized education plans. So I included that money because that is money that GLA directly gets. If the high school has 20 kids with IEPs, the high school, that is money allotted to the high school to help serve those kids. So that's where
I
that,
was just like, what's the
and again, it
difference?
may be off like 1,000, but
Right.
so I try to just keep the figures nice and round. But yeah, so that's where, you add that 25,000, it's 5,300 a kid. It ends up being about 172, which is the other figure
Gotcha. Thank
over
you.
there on the right. Any more questions with that?
Go ahead, we're gonna let you finish.
Okay. So the next thing that I asked the finance department to look into for us is we have 40 out of district students, and I wanted to know whether or not the district would take a hit for losing those students, and the cost of losing 40 out of district students is $166,000 roundabout. So we also lose the out of district tuition, which not all of our students, and this is across the board for Elkin City Schools, this is any school district you go to, not all of your students will pay out of district tuition. We do have waivers, we do have reductions. We do have some people for various reasons who are having their tuition waived or reduced for GLA. So around about per year for the district or for GLA will be $20,000. If we collected tuition, the full $650 from every single student that's out of district for us, it would be about $26,000, but we have waived probably close to that $6,000 or $7,000 mark. So I just gave you around about $20,000 for the out of district tuition. So when all that's combined, it's actually going to hurt us more next year to lose the Global Learning Academy, because we lose that out of district money. We do lose that out of district tuition. And then you have from the previous slide, the $171,000, $172,000, excluding the IEP money that the district will also lose, because we have to keep these teachers on staff right now. They have to be offered positions, and we don't have, I don't know where they're going to go, don't know what they're going to do. So that's another thing that I think when I've spoken to a couple of you guys individually, you guys have to have a plan for, it's not just, all right, we're going to axe GLA and that's all she wrote. Bam, we just saved $100 and some $1,000. When in reality, you now have to figure out where we're going to try to house in some capacity these educators and other staff members. So. again, we can, like, this is stuff that I'm pulling for finance. My purview of duty is educating kids. It's not crunching these numbers. So I stay in my lane, and if I hate to dump Miss Creasy and company under the bus, but you know, that's what we were given when we.
Let me ask you a question. Is it okay?
I thought he was gonna finish, and then we'll have all the
Oh,
questions at the end.
Make you a little note, Mr. Wagner. We'll get them all.
No, we're gonna get them all. I want you to go ahead.
That's fine. I mean, we want to be timely so
Yeah,
we can get
yeah,
to that.
That's right. So we'll have plenty.
So the next thing we want to talk about, and this is leading up to help you guys understand why our school performance grade is what it is we're going to talk about achievement and growth. So meeting achievement for a child is making a 3 or higher on their end of grade exams. Meeting growth for our teachers, we use EVOS data to predict, and the more years that you have a kid, and the more data you have on them, the better you can predict where they're going to be or from year to year. So what this is if you just a real hot, quick way to help you understand what we're looking for, really ideally is the middle green and up. In a perfect world, if we're really growing our kids, you'll see your teachers in blue. You obviously don't want to see any of your teachers when you're looking over their data. You don't want to see teachers in red, because that tells you there's a high probability that your students aren't growing on the pace that they need to. So this is our growth indicator data for math. We are dead set in the middle of the green, a little blue growth, but this is from 2022 and 2023. If you look, we like to look at things based off cohort. So if you look, does this thing have a laser on it? So if you want to look at 6th grade 2022, you're good. You see we are slightly above the midline with 6th grade growth. You go down to 2023 to our 7th grade class, their growth is increasing. So we look at by year, by cohort. So the kids that we have coming through GLA are pretty much growing on pace or more. So that's what we look at when we're looking at teachers. We want to see our teachers at least in the green. That means that they're growing kids. Same thing when we switch to reading and then some predictor data for science, you see our teachers are growing our students. So we had to take out some, when we met with Ms. Kleinhex, we kind of showed her some actual student data. We can't have that up here in front of everybody because that's private data. But this is just to give you kind of just a quick glance of if a student comes to our teachers' classes, what they can expect, and our kids are growing year by year. So some of the things that we're looking to try to make GLA more financially feasible, we have talked about the co-teaching. You can't do that for every single class. It tends to be the core classes or the classes, the core academic classes where kids have the most struggle. So it's your English 2, Math 1, 2, and 3. You have biology, and then you have a CT class, economics and personal finance. So what this would mean is that we would augment our GLA schedule for kids to have an assigned time, X amount of days a week. You know, right now we're saying that it would be good to see them in a perfect world 3 days a week. So like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, may have Tuesday, Thursday offerings. But what they do, NCVPS provides you with the course. You provide the course with an educator. So we would use one of our highly qualified middle school staff to teach some or various ones of these courses. Kids would have face-to-face meetings, which has been the biggest issue for our high school students finding success. Kids leave our middle school and they have so much more freedom when they have an NCVPS class, but it's very easy to get behind. I mean, when you have 3 or 4 classes that have two to 4 assignments a week, you can find yourself 20 or 30 assignments in a hole if you fail to do work over the course of 2 or 3 weeks. So there's not as much flexibility as kids want to have. But what this does, if I was taking a foundations, right now, Mr. Bashir is actually teaching a foundations with a young man. And what it does is he meets with him daily because it fits the schedule almost. But this kid is held accountable. He comes in and works. Mr. Bashir has the class. He just teaches this class with the youngin. You want to talk?
So usually with the foundations, and at first it was out of my comfort zone because 1, I didn't create it, and 2, I didn't know what was coming to me. However, it's worked extremely, extremely well. So student and I would sit down. We look at the work for the day. We go through the exercises. He turns in his work. He takes his quizzes. I have a responsibility to score part of it. Other part is scored through NCVPS. The piece where I think is very valuable is having an interaction with a person each and every day. That's valuable. Where a lot of our students, and having gone through this, where I could see that there would be issues where students would struggle, is that some of the things in NCVPS, you're not going to get a grade for, right? So if a student is asked to watch a video and take notes on it, if they know they're not going to get a score for it, if I'm a 13, 14, 15-year-old, I'm not going to do it. If I get behind 2 or 3 days and I see, oh, I need to take a quiz, I need to take a test. Well, if I've not done the work leading up to it, if I've not done the exercises leading up to it, I'm not going to be successful on the quiz. I'm not going to be successful on the test. If I have no one there to support me, if I have no one there to go back and push me and make sure that I'm in line, I'm going to become frustrated. When I'm frustrated, I'm going to shut down. And then the course, there we go, right? Having the co-teaching model, especially for our lower grades, freshmen and or sophomores, it gives them and allows them an opportunity to transition from middle school through high school, being efficient and being successful. Being efficient and being successful. I see this with the foundations, with the Math 1. It's giving our kids what they need to transition from a middle school setting to a high school setting. So that is very, very beneficial.
And we also have a schedule right now where our teachers provide kids with daily tutoring, and we call it our tutoring block, but it's also an extension block. We have kids who come to go above and beyond what they're doing in their current curriculum. But this would be something that we could offer now to our high school students so that they, in some capacity, have an adult. Because again, like he said, we have kids coming out of 8th grade going to 9th grade that are really struggling because they don't have Mama Bear Adams back there calling them at 8:35 if they haven't logged into their 8:30 class. So that personal touch that you lose, when it is gone cold turkey, it is difficult for our kids to be successful when they're on their NCVPS classes. Also, we've talked about making requirements to get into GLA more stringent, having teacher recommendations like some similar remote schools around us. We've talked about basically making sure that if a kid struggles or they do not meet proficiency on end of grade or end of course tests, that they're only recommended to take co-taught classes if they're available, so that that student's required to have face-to-face interactions X amount of days a week. So here's a quick and dirty little overview of school performance grade. The reason we wanted to show you this, and then the next slide will be our proficiency indicators. The reason we wanted to show you this is right now the school performance grade is not skewed in a good way for kids that are low and growing. When you've got 80% of your school performance grade dictated on whether or not a kid achieves a 3, 4, or 5 on an exam, it is you're facing an uphill battle. You'll see here in a second exactly why that's the case. If you've got time, you can read and see what all these are, but they're typically your end of grade, end of course exams. Growth indicators, that's what you saw when you looked at teacher growth. Those teacher growth in EVOS are populated based off of how kids perform in their classes. And that's only 20%. So we could grow kids every year. We could have teachers all in the blue, absolutely crushing it, kids growing. And when it only counts for 20% of it, you're still at a disadvantage. Now, the reason I show you this next slide, out of 27 students that are taking the EOG math grades 6 through 8, only 22% of our kids are predicted to pass that at a 3 or higher. That's an F in a school performance grade. That is a low F. In ELA, only 15 of our 27 students are predicted to make a 3, 4, or 5 on the end of grade exam. That is a very, very low C. And same thing with science. That's just our 8th grade, only 9 of 16, and that's 56% too, which is again a low C. So you've got 2 low C's and an exceptionally low F. You come back up here to your school performance grade, that's going to probably find us right around, close to the bottom of the 50s. And so that puts us in a D. I mean, the math works. So that's what it's based off of. Now, supposedly they're going to try to start including other factors. They're calling them opportunities and outcomes. Ms. Burton gave us some of that feedback that you guys had from your PD, but that's 3 to 5 years out. But that'll include things like attendance, behavior, career development stuff that kids can participate in. And so, but again, that's 3 to 5 years out. So right now we're still biking with the same bicycle. This is what we got to work with. Anything with the.
Just as far as the percentages, when you look at that, and I look at that as a teacher, you're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? What we're doing is we're growing. We're growing students. We're meeting our students where they are, and we're taking them somewhere else. We've had 2 rounds of check-ins in math. 2 rounds, 1 and 2. Seeing growth in all 3 areas between 1 and 2. As a teacher, I can't get hung up on percentages. I can get hung up on growth. I have, as a parent, as a teacher, when I have students in front of me, every year at the end of the school year, I've never sat in front of my students and said, this is the big day. No pressure, but everything's riding on what you do at this one moment in time. What do we say? We always say this is one moment in time. It does not define who you are or what you're capable of doing. One moment in time, right? Same holds true. That's what my administrators have always told me. All the teachers, you're doing your job. You're where you need to be. You're growing your kids. This is one moment in time. All students are different. All students are different. I have 2. As a parent, I have 2. They're both different. They both bring different gifts, right? But one of my children, academically out there, super student, hard worker. My other student, my other child, my daughter, she has a lot of challenges. She's not going to make a 3 or a 4. Never. However, due to the teachers that she's had and the experience that she's had in our district, she's grown. So as a parent, that's no different for me. I'm speaking as a parent. Take my teacher hat off, put my daddy hat on. I've seen both of my children grow different ways. That's what we look at here. That's how we as teachers, we as parents, we as a district look. We're growing. The data supports that. The data supports growth. If you're a B school, you're always looking to grow higher. If you're a C school, you're looking to grow more. So when we look beyond numbers and we understand context, that's when we all tend to grow more through that understanding. So that's just where maybe just a little bit of an insight with that.
So here's our attendance data. We'll be quick about this. Our middle school attendance data is really good. Our teachers are on top of it. If you're not there, you get notified, and it's the middle school. I've been very fortunate stepping into this role, have four great educators who take care of their classes. High school attendance last semester was probably the biggest issue. It was at 77%. What we did is at the end of the semester, we changed with how we did that so that now kids are held more accountable. We get biweekly grade reports for NCVPS. I can look and see if little Timmy tells me he's working in math module 1. I can look right there on the fly because I have everybody's login credentials, and I can look and see whether little Timmy actually did math module 1. And so if we see, we want to give kids the benefit of the doubt. We want to trust them until we can't. But when we see that he is not working, it's when we have a conversation about him coming in the building X amount of days a week to get called up. So high school attendance right now is sitting in the 90 percentile. I just did a quick number crunch based off of what we got up to this point in time. But attendance is already 10 times better, just kind of switching over from what we had done in the previous school year. We put this on there just so you can kind of get an idea of like some of the students. I mean, right now we're sitting at, I think, 56 students. We enrolled a couple today, couple middle schooler and then a high school maybe the other day. But we have 5 students with IEPs. We've got 5 students with 504s. And so 18% of our student body has some sort of accommodations for what they do in their learning environment. We provide those for the kids. And then last semester, when we kind of caught wind that this may be coming down the pipeline for us, I mean, we wanted to have the kids' input because at the end of the day, I think that's what matters most. It's not so much what we as staff think, but what the students and families think. So out of our, at the time, about 70 students, 21 of them took the survey. 5 of those mentioned, and these are not necessarily 5 students that are in district. So I don't want you to think we have some massive bullying problem in our Elkin City schools, but 5 students mentioned that, they felt like this helped them avoid bullying in any form or capacity. 7 of those students have various levels of anxiety. I've talked to some of y'all individually about some of the kids I was fortunate enough to meet this past summer at our summer orientation sessions. And, when we've got students who are super familiar with our educators and they still can't even make eye contact and have a conversation with them, it may be difficult for them to come in the building. So this gives them a chance to learn at home in their own environment. And if you've ever if you ever want the opportunity to come sit in my office and step into a class and see what goes on, you'll see it's a very warm, comforting environment. They are stepping into their students' home and vice versa and sharing that space with them. Lastly, we do have a couple of students these are out of district, but a couple of students who have been successful with us who have some issues with oppositional defiancy disorder, and they have come in here, transitioned nicely, and it's been no issues whatsoever. So it's been an easy transition for these kids to be working from home with our educators here. But we thought it would be good because at the end of the day, it's the kids that are going to be most impacted by this. So we did a wide GLA survey last semester. Anything else you want to add? So that's the gist. You got questions? Fire away.
Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna ask the non-financial questions. Mr. Foster, since he's told us he's not a CPA or a finance officer, and we're blessed to have a finance officer, so we're gonna ask non-financial questions to Mr. Bashirs and Mr. Foster. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing.
Thank y'all for the opportunity.
And then we'll have, our finance officer come and speak to us, regarding finances, okay? That's the way I had envisioned this. So, Mr. Wagner, if you'd like to start off the questions.
Well, mine dealt with finance, but I can restate it another
Okay.
way. How do you verify that the student that's in the GLA program has been released from another school system if they're out of district? And how do you ensure that those students have paid the out of tuition fees?
So we do not enroll a student. You are not supposed to ever enroll a student who hasn't been released from another district. So we're fortunate enough to the people that we work with. Ms. Mathis knows just about everybody, especially in this little Tri-County area. I mean, we know, we text and we contact, but until we receive the paperwork, they have been released from their district, we do not enroll a student. So we had to wait. We had one person who was in Wilkes County district and they didn't finish their exams until couple 3 weeks after Christmas. So we didn't enroll, this student enrolled late with us, but we would not enroll this student until they had completely finished with their exams and been released from their district. We have a document that we have, it's a district-wide document in terms of the out-of-district tuition that we document when when a student pays, but that's all of our schools share that document. And we're still owed some. We're still on the hook for some. GLA probably about maybe $4,000. Matt, that's where are we? So, yeah, we're working on it, but
Any other questions? Non-financial?
I'll ask one.
yes, sir.
Just on the, I know the proficiency projections, all that kind of stuff. I totally agree. Been married to a teacher for years and years. Growth is absolutely, primary and good to see all that growth. At the same time, all of our schools are measured by the same metrics, growth. And so obviously they're scoring higher. Our elementary school, measured by the same metrics, 80-20. When you think, are the kids that are coming, and I don't want to stereotype anyone, but
Gotcha.
are they just more low performers? Are they going to achieve proficiency? I mean, because obviously our elementary schools doing better if we've got those numbers higher because they've got the same metrics they're measured by.
Yeah, sometimes we look at things in context. So if say I have 5 students in class, right? I have 5 students in class. Of those 5, I have 2 that are proficient and 3 that were projected to be not proficient. And by that, when you look at the EBOS data, it gives you ranges, okay? So if you have 5 students, 2 of those, one has a 80% chance of scoring a level 3. One has a 60% chance of scoring a level 3. And 3 have a 20% chance, all right? If I take and I hit really where I need to be, that's 40%. Okay? That's 2 out of the 5, right? Unless you're at 4 out of 5, so unless you're bringing probably 2 to 3 grade levels up, you're not going to measure the same thing, because what happens is a lot of times with small numbers make big impacts.
Gotcha.
And that's where that percentage comes from. So as a teacher coming from the classroom, from both math and social studies, and, used to hitting, always told the 80%, 80%, 80%, 80%, 80%, right? Moving from that and coming to where, you're not going to hit, you may not hit 80%. You may not hit it, but you can hit growth. Okay, and there are different other ways of looking at that as well. So if we're a D school, but we're meeting growth every year, right? That shows what we're given. We're doing what we're supposed to with it. Okay, there are instances where you might be a B school and not meet growth. You see?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but
That helps a lot. I
yeah,
understand.
that's how I have to look at it. I want all of my students to, make a level 3, make a 4, make a 5. That's anybody's goal. Right? But at the same time, I also want them, and we had this conversation in class today, we want to move from point A to point B. And we've done that so far. Our next is moving from B to C. And that's our 3rd check-in. And then finally, ultimately, to the final exam. So we're looking at it in steps. I am. The students are looking at it in steps, and we're looking to get from A to B, B to C, C to D. And at the end of the day, the proficiency is going to take care of itself, and the growth piece will take care of itself. So
Yeah,
that
thank you.
helped.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Other questions from the board members? Jennifer? Blackburn?
I've asked a lot of them.
Okay. Satisfied. All right, I have,
I do.
you have-
How many hours a day would you say that you invest in these students? Of whom I've discerned you're very passionate.
I mean, it's, as far as, students have, we're in front. So when you look, when I have my, NCVPS course, my schedule was to come in, get everything ready, check emails, get ready, boom, 8:30. 8:30, 9:15-ish. We've had one student getting that, take a breather, get ready for 8th grade, 9:45, 10:45, transition, 7th grade, 11 to 12, take a breather, eat lunch, 12:30 to 1:35, right? Tutoring to 2:45, staff meetings, then there's the end of the day. Now, that doesn't include making lesson plans for all of us. We have 3 completely different grade levels. So 6th grade math is totally different than 7th grade math, is totally different than 8th grade math. Same thing for 6th grade English, same thing for science, same thing for social studies. So over the course of a week, we're working to put together a minimum of 15 individual lessons per week. With that, to develop it in a way that has to be concise and hit all of the standards, while going back to look to see what, with small numbers, right? So we need to come back and focus on this. We need to do that. So the hours, I don't keep up with it. I work on Saturdays. That's just what it is sometimes. Get up, I need to get this done. I didn't get to it during the week. I know Ms. Adams, she fields calls in the evenings. We field calls in the evenings. So it's not, I've learned a long time ago. I'm an old teacher and I'm getting older at going on 26 years. But you can't measure it in time. All right. You work, all right, work till you get your job done, then we go on and do something else. But I don't know if that answered your question, but it's time.
You take a day off?
Oh, yes. We do.
And I'll say one thing that I've gained an appreciation for, their hours are not just what's designated on the schedule. I mean, they field, Miss Adams could probably tell you all the late night phone calls she's fields throughout the weekend on the weekend. So like part of our remote education that we try to offer kids, you almost become part of the family. I know that's corny cliche or whatever, but teachers text and call at all hours, or parents call, text, and email at all hours of every day. So it's one of the things that I will forever pride them on. We keep a contact log for our school improvement plan, and it is like busting at the seams, and it probably doesn't even have all the phone calls and emails and the texts that they send in there for documentation purposes. But a huge portion of their job is staying into touch with the families that they teach. So.
You say they have to document?
Yes.
Free?
Yeah, so we're part of all of our schools. I'm pretty sure even, I think elementary school too, we keep a parent contact log when you call them, what you're calling about. It's not just like disciplinary stuff. We have categories, good news, attendance, celebrations, whatever, just so that we can, and we try to have our teachers make regular contacts, whether that's positive or something that has to do with academics.
That'd be time as well.
So, any other questions?
Any other questions?
Any way to project future attendance, future growth? How we
Well,
looking for-
so I'll give you an example. We've probably not enrolled double-digit kids this semester, additional students, because I'm not going to blow smoke up someone's hind end. I've told them that I can't promise you that GLA will be here next year. So these people have either stayed where they're going to school at, or they have looked at alternative placements elsewhere. So our middle school numbers will be, we'll have to promote and push because we lost our feeder school, the K-5 students at the elementary school being able to attend school remotely. So we lost that. We don't have that nice regular influx of kids. At the high school level, I think it's easy. Again, like this semester alone, we have not turned down. People have chosen not to enroll in GLA because who wants to enroll for a semester and then have to go through the enrollment process elsewhere and just do it again somewhere else or go back to their home district. So, once we know, there's a whole lot of decisions to be made, whichever way you guys vote. But we do know that we need to, I think I talked to one of y'all, I can't remember if it was you, Dr. Blevins, or Ms. Kleinhexel. We're sitting at below 60 kids. We don't want to just pump up numbers because I think that's where some of our problem, we had a lot of kids that maybe weren't cut out for remote learning. But we do want to have numbers, the kids that are going to come in and work and be successful and get our bang for the buck. But we do want to grow our numbers, but we're not going to grow them until we can say we'll be here next year.
How many kids did you have to drop out of the program this year? Any, one, two?
So I think we started the school year with about 70 students. So we've had we've had 5 or 6 transfer back to their home districts to go back to face-to-face learning. We have dropped various students, especially at the high school level. If we register a kid for 3 or 4 classes at $349 a pop, not that it's about necessarily money, but when we have a student who doesn't receive credits in any of their classes, doesn't make any attempt to do the work, I make home visits, we make phone calls, we send letters, and we're not gonna take a chance on enrolling them in additional classes. So.
We broke it at middle school.
Yeah. So we'll be pushing almost 29 or 30 kids at the end of the week. So.
Any other questions?
Pardon my ignorance, that's why I'm
I'll fire away.
appreciative of this right here, because it's helping me to come to an informed decision. If GLE students need services with such as speech or PT or guidance or social worker, how are they received? Do they?
So something like PT we don't have any instances right now of any students receiving physical therapy, but every other service is offered remotely. Miss Simmons is she is our IEP provider or our service provider. So students, she meshes it with her current schedule at the middle school. She meets with those students remotely. Same thing with speech.
So if Ms. Lane here were to realize that a student would need some help, specialized help, he could come or go to one of our specialists here in-house and they could assist.
So if a student, might need you to rephrase your question. So if we have a student that for instance, we have enrolled a kid who we've found that they're going to need a specialized education plan. So he has gone through the gamut of testing, and we are in the process of drafting his IEP and the services that he'll need to be successful. So if a kid comes in and we deem it necessary, an IEP is much more formal. We have to do all the testing. But yeah, so if it's something that's recognized as a need, then a parent at any point can ask to be tested and go through that process. So, but we try to do everything remotely. I know someone said at one point they had to go to houses, but we do it. All services are provided remote.
All right, any other questions, Mr. Foster? I have one. You said 18% require accommodations. Is that correct? That's
Yes, sir.
there. And is that number up or down? Because I find that,
That's high in a typical education setting. Yeah, that would be high. I would say single, like maybe, and I couldn't give you the exact percent. I'd have to consult with Miss Mullis and Miss Edwards in terms of our 504s and IEPs, but it would be a single digit number of students that require services, probably something in the realm of 4 to 6, if I had to make an educated guess.
what I'm thinking is if there was no global camera, then that 18% would still need accommodations, is that correct?
Somewhere, yes. I mean,
Still be, a financial piece to that.
Yeah.
Correct, so.
So we don't receive any additional funding for 504s. It's only the students with IEPs. But yeah, so I mean, wherever they landed, let's say if all of those students were kids that were in district and would land back here, then yes, in some form or fashion, I mean, there would be funding with that, but we would also have to make sure that and please understand that if you guys vote and you feel that GLA should not be continued next year, you will need to have a plan for transitioning some kids back into this building, outside of a plan for how we're gonna, house teachers. And these are great, we've got some great staff at GLA, but there are 100 decisions that will need to be addressed if you decide not to. We're hoping you don't, but
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I
All right,
appreciate the
thank
opportunity.
you.
Thank y'all.
Now we're gonna have the finance officer, Ms. Creasy's gonna come and give us some numbers and answer all your questions.
Well, we can only.
Thank you.
hope.
That's right. Thank you for coming.
All right. You guys have the numbers in front of you right now with from the PowerPoint on the financial slide.
I don't
see
my
it.
printer messed up again, and so I don't have those, but
Okay. Yeah, you can bring up the PowerPoint with the financial slide. That'd be fine. Yeah. Cause I mean, we work together to come up with these numbers, so.
Right.
I have a clicker. Right here? I don't have them. It should say something like financial, so, Foster, you get
Have anything to
Right
back?
there.
Okay, right here. Okay.
Thank you.
So the GLA gain or loss was the numbers I ran. You can pretty much see the first thing right there we have is the staff cost. This is for 2024 fiscal year. This includes both salaries and benefits. I wanted you to keep in mind that, like I said, this is for 2024. This number will increase in 2025. Right here, we have our state funding. This is our money pots. We are allotted so much per so many PRCs. We took that number and we allotted some to GLA based on how many kids that they had, which at the time was 59. Then we have our teachers earned. This is how many positions that we earn based on how many students there are per each grade level. So to give you an idea, you have to have so many kids in each grade before you earn a teacher position, like a teacher allotment, and then you're given so much money for that teacher. DPI estimated it's around 77K per teacher. So we have earned 2.3 teachers based on our students that are enrolled in each grade. Then we have our local funding, which is the $1,280 that were allotted for each kid. You can see right here, I said, we removed the out of district. We did not remove the out of district kids. Reason being is because these out of district, out of county kids do not receive the $1,280 per student, but they do receive other funding. They get their tuition, they get the supplemental tax. So that actually ended up balancing out and we ended up giving maybe a little bit more to GLA in that amount. And then we had the NCVPS expenditure cost, which is what it is. It is $76,000. That's what it is. We did not include the IEP. I didn't have that information at the time and I can't give you a definitive on that one because every student is different. I think Mr. Foster pretty much stated that, every student has different needs. Some might need a one-on-one, some might not, some might need help with speech, some might not, it depends on each one. And that could all play a factor in there. So, do you guys have question on these numbers? I know we both kind of hit on both sides of that.
Questions? We'll start with you, Larry. What?
Nope.
Okay. Why? All these numbers.
I know.
Plus, good for state government to confuse you. But bottom line, I don't know if we can get to that. We see on the one, cost differential, basically approximately $147,000. Then we go on the next slide, predicted 2024-25 loss for the district if GLA closes, 261,000. Basically, how are we gonna be impacted financially? Is it gonna be a break even? Is it gonna really hit us that, hey, it's gonna cost us, or is it, what's?
It all
bottom
depends on
line.
what happens to that ADM. The kids really count. I can't tell you what would happen to the out-of-district kids. If your out-of-district kids decided to drop out, that would greatly change. If everything stayed the same, it would almost break even. You'd still be a little bit in the hole, but not much.
I mean, if we kept it going and all the kids stayed.
I
the
mean, if
same,
you dissolve it and all the
Would-
kids stay.
Okay, and all the kids stayed in.
Yes, but there's a lot of factors that play into that. So, I mean, it would have to be looked at every angle before you can really make a determination based on that.
Okay.
What you're saying is, if I understand it, is if the board dissolves the GLA, that does not necessarily mean we save $147,000, or we do?
It does not necessarily mean you will. You still have to keep in mind ADM will fluctuate and that determines how much money you have. And you will have to keep the faculty. He did mention that. So those both will be there.
That's what I thought. Okay. She said, we would still, you can't make the assumption that if you dissolve the program, you don't immediately get $147,000 off the ledger. That there's still costs and things that associated, you can't make that assumption.
Right.
Okay, because there's still, we're still in the process of educating our children.
And also understand that, out of these 40 out of district kids, if you're just being a realist, there's a low probability that they decide to come back in the building here. It would not make sense for some of these kids, even if they're a Wilkes County to drive 30 minutes to, I would send my kids an hour to Elkin, but we can't expect a kid to drive 30, 45 minutes out of district, wherever they are, to come here. So there's a high probability that we do lose a percentage of that 40.
And can we even keep that 40 in? Do we have room for them? Like,
At the
No?
high school, a little more flexibility than the middle school. Middle school is going to be stacked. So.
So basically, if you look at this and you look at all these costs right here. And then you get rid of those 40, like everybody, you just dissolve it as is. And all the kids are gone, but you have to keep the faculty. You'll still have faculty costs. That's just what,
How much?
you'll still have the faculty costs. If you dissolve GLA completely and lost all your kids, like just zero it out, you'd still have the faculty costs because you do have to absorb them.
Yep. Yeah, any idea what that faculty cost would be? I mean, how much is, how much you get from the state for that, and how much we have to put out, all that.
So faculty cost, we have so many teachers and that'd be around 330 some thousand of that $417,000 cost. Keep in mind that does go up next year. And then it would all come down, to your teachers earning how many kids per each grade level. It always goes back to that because that's where you get your money from.
The part of it would determine where they were assigned, what grade level, how many students are in that grade.
Pretty much.
Everybody clear on that?
For example, if you have
That's
24
a-
kids in sixth grade, you get a position, you get so many for kindergarten, so many for first, depending on how many kids.
If we put them at grade levels where there was needs and, the volume of students, that's what you're saying, that would help us for sure. Sounds like it would,
I wouldn't say for sure, but I would lean toward
most likely.
most likely.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, again, this is a snapshot of our overall budget. Keep that in mind. And these are approximations. We asked Miss Rachel, God love her, to put this together very quickly. This is an approximation. Keep that in mind. These are not concrete figures here. We get one big teacher allotment from the state for Elkin City Schools. And then from that number that they give us, and I think Mr. Bashir's touched on it beautifully, we got 60 just a couple years ago. Now we're down to 54. We don't know why. Our numbers are still pretty close to where they were. That's just cuts from the state. That's out of our control. They dump that in and say, here, okay, this year you get 54. Well, Rachel's job, in conjunction with the principals, is funneling that out to all of our entities here, all 4 schools. And so, again, that's a best guess.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of things at play, as you can see from what she said and what they said. We have to take into account those students with services. We have to take into account, there's 40 out of district. We're getting dollars for those that we otherwise wouldn't. They're also not taking up any space. You heard Mr. Foster say, our middle school, as well as our elementary, we've already discussed, are both busting at the seams. So there are so many factors, and we can sit here and what if it all night long, but she's done it beautifully. So has Mr. Bashirs and Mr. Foster. They've described it better than I ever could, but this is just a little tiny snapshot of what could be or might be. But bottom line is, these are our students. These are our teachers, and we need to think about that as we're moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Thank you. Any other financial questions? So really what we're saying in the 54 teacher allotments we have, they're not extra teacher allotments for GLA. I mean, they're our teachers already.
Our teachers,
They're
that's
part
right.
of, they're part of the rock star group that we
That's right.
got.
That's exactly
Right.
right.
That's the way I understand it. So it's not like this is just the side stuff. I mean, not
Exactly.
extra.
They're Elkin City
They're part
schools.
of Elkin City
Yes.
Schools, 54 allotments,
Yes,
who have decided that they can make an impact in this type of environment and have went and done so. Is that
yes, sir.
correct?
That's correct. That's
That's,
correct.
that's what I want to make sure.
My concern is exactly what you said. I don't want to lose, since time immemorial in Elkin City Schools, we've wanted kids to come to this school system. And I certainly don't want to see kids leave this school system. Because number one, I think we serve the community quite well. Number two is, I think we would lose several dollars. That's an opinion.
Any other questions? Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Creasy? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate what you've done in a short amount of time. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is the public forum. And, we're gonna do that. And 3 minutes. And, Miss Allie's gonna be the timekeeper. And this is no random order where, here comes Miss Allison. Thank you. Thank you. And, I want to start with, is there anyone online? Britt?
Yeah, but I just sent out the thing to let them know.
Okay. All right, so make sure I come back to that, okay? All right. Well, we'll just shuffle the deck here and see, in no particular order. Jessica Germain? I'm sorry, it was just random.
Yeah, I'm feeling the randomness about that right now. I'll just say that officer is not here for me in case I decide to get passionate in my speech, right? Just want to make sure we have that cleared up, right? You know, but talking about GLA, right? I found myself at 4:36 getting the information that, oh, we're not doing this at 6, now we're doing this at 5. So let's all hurry up and eat something really quick because we know we're going to be at this school board meeting for up to 3 hours, right? So, you know, revisiting some of the concerns that were addressed here, right? And as we continue to put GLA on the chopping block, right? We've reviewed the financials, right? There's a big investment. And if we just remove GLA right now, right? We've taken away all those years that we've invested in a program that is the first of its kind, right? We are the first. I am proud to say that as part of GLA. And Elkin should be proud to say that we are breaking ground on new ideas. We are meeting our students where we are at, right? And it is up to the policy is up to the board to continue to develop policies to oversee the budget, right? There are some concerns about GLA. There are some things that need to be addressed, but this is an opportunity for us to grow, to continue to build on what we've already worked on. There is no question that the teachers here do an amazing job meeting their students where they at, going above and beyond their call of duty. Their classroom doesn't end at 2 or 3 or 4. They're up at the middle of the night. I see messages all the time from Miss Adams grading papers up until 11 o'clock in the evening. We don't see that from our other staff. The amount of time that these teachers put into their students is absolutely commendable, and we should be proud of that for Elkin. And we should be proud of the fact that we are breaking ground on new ideas and continuing to see growth of our students. Is it where we want them to be? No, but there's always room for improvement. And it is up to this board to remove any judgments or biases they have so that they can address the policies of this board. Not to reprimand teachers or question whether or not they're doing their job. We know the superintendent can do that well enough, and our principal can speak faster than anyone if he needs to get somebody in line. We know that they're doing their job. If the school board needs to address policies to make sure that they're meeting their benchmarks, we want you to do that. But I question some of the comments that I've heard from this board, whether it's about sending our children to homeschool. Every person in this room and every person in Elkin contributes their tax dollars. We don't question them if they don't have schools and kids in the school system. They're still contributing. Just like I am contributing to Elkin City Schools. I am out of district, but I hear the ball games from my backyard. I am just as much a part of this community on a Friday night when I hear the ruckus and the drums banging. We are here and we deserve to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Mark Waddell?
I'm a parent and a mental health professional with several years of experience working with members of our community. At the board meeting on the 22nd of January, Board Member Blackburn stated he didn't understand how kids with these types of issues, like these kids at GLA, would be able to attend an extracurricular activity supported by the school system. Chairperson Brenniger humorously stated he was perplexed by this as well. First, let me say that the passive-aggressive comments were uncalled for. They were disparaging and minimized the challenges that some of these students endure every day. Who are either of you to make light of another person's unique circumstances? This is the sort of behavior that fuels and promotes the bullying and violence that exists within our school systems and our communities. Board Member Blackburn stated that he was speaking for the people earlier in the last meeting. And I can't help but wonder how many people in this room was appalled by the lack of insight, compassion, and empathy that should be granted to each of these young people. I've heard the condescending comments, seen the vile social media posts, and the lack of respect for those that are different coming from some of the members of this board. I am saddened, I am frustrated, and I am dismayed by the lack of integrity that has been shown by this board. You question whether GLA is a viable learning option for our children, but you reduce our children's unique needs and interests with rhetoric and don't even provide options for continuing the GLA program. You have teaching staff, administrators, parents, and students advocating for this program to continue. We're given 3 minutes to verbalize our thoughts and concerns. And Mr. Blackburn, if you were actually speaking for us, the people, then I would like to think that you would not be wasting our time with your personal bias and condescending remarks. After all, this is supposed to be about providing a holistic learning experience, learning opportunities that will prepare our students for a successful life and our children. My son has grown academically and his confidence has grown leaps and bounds since GLA. For his sake and for the sake of his future, I advocate for GLA's continuation and that this board strongly considers a mental health competency training so that the misguided insights and judgments of its board members do no further harm to the community it serves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Madeline Robinson Gaddis, did I say that correctly? I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
No, you didn't. So I think that I want to keep this. I want to keep GLA open because most people are not as social as like people, as like other people are in a public school, and they struggle with finding like partners to do group work and stuff. I am one of those people, and I want to keep GLA open so that I can do work by myself. Doing work by myself helps me improve as a better person. I want to keep GLA open because I have ADHD, and doing my work online helps me with my mental disabilities. I want you guys to keep GLA open because it helps people improve, and it's easier for people to to like it's easier for people to become better people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda Robinson.
So that was my daughter you just heard from, and
Thank you.
what she was shying away from saying, what she wrote to you already in a note, is that one of the reasons she struggles with socializing is because she's autistic, and she didn't speak until she was 3. And in a busy classroom setting, when all of the socializing is going on and all of the different conversations are going on, they're really confusing to her. And she's trying, she tried forever to fit in, to act like a normal kid, as she would say, and it broke her spirit completely. And we had a really awful, awful summer where she refused to go back to school in Wilkesboro. And her therapist recommended GLA. And for kids like her with any kind of issues that's not impacting them intellectually, there's a real opportunity for you guys to find parents out in other communities that are, I'm sorry, I'm scared to talk in public, but there's a real opportunity for you. I've taken both of my kids out of school. My son is homeschooled now, and I'm on the homeschool message boards all the time. About at least once or twice a week in Wilkes County Homeschoolers, somebody is saying to me or saying to somebody on there, just a blanket outreach, like, how do I take my kid out of school? How do I homeschool my kid? Where do I start? What's the best program? And there isn't a best program. If you go online to a program, then it's just lesson here, lesson here, lesson here. There's no interaction with a teacher. There's no accountability for whether or not they finish it on time. There's no going back to really, tweak whether or not the student understood it. You have something so amazing here for students because the teachers will interact with them. The other option for homeschooling is book learning. And I don't know if you really want to sit there and look at a math book and try to figure out what they're explaining unless somebody's putting it on a board for you. I certainly wouldn't. So I just think that if you look at this as a broader opportunity to help the broader area of Northwestern North Carolina and the students here who are struggling with all of these different issues, not just bullying, not just anxiety, but students who are afraid to be who they are, then you would have an opportunity out of district to bring yourselves in a lot more funding and provide a safe situation for the greater community. And that would be one of the greatest ways to lead by example for this area. And I also heard that last week, somebody had addressed the idea of extracurriculars and everything. And my real question when I heard that was, is that about the funding? Because homeschoolers all over the area have extracurriculars.
Thank you. Allison Snyder. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. My sons, Michael and B, are back in the back there. They did refuse to come up with me. But we've had a wonderful experience at Elkin City Schools since moving here in 2019. They were in the regular school before transitioning over to GLA. But I just wanted to point out, and I totally appreciate as a physician, the physical and mental disabilities that a lot of the students do suffer. Mine choice of staying with GLA has honestly been just more of scheduling issues. With competitive sports, that's something that I haven't heard anybody bring out. It's a wonderful option because they can't really attend a traditional school setting because he does competitive motocross. And so we travel all over the country for that. So this is a wonderful option. I've actually told a lot of the other families about this option because it is a very unique, high quality teaching setting that's flexible for parents that can't have a traditional school setting. But anyway, also just from a scheduling standpoint, I'm a single parent, full-time working, so it's hard for me to pick up and drop off because I am out of district. I have paid my fees and I'm up to date on that, so I'm not, but I am one that you would lose, honestly, because we are out of county and there's no way that I could physically get my kids into the school. The quality of teaching at GLA has been phenomenal. I've never experienced such caring, involved teachers. They literally call or text with any issues that arise. It's just been a wonderful experience. I literally love each and every one of the teachers, and I would hate to not be interacting with them in the future. But there was mention, I think, the last meeting about the North Carolina virtual public school classes being free. Somebody had said that, but that is not the case. And I believe from what I looked on their website, it costs about $420 per class per semester. So for me, that would be about $1,680 per semester for one of my children. Not only that, but you can't just sign up and take the classes. You technically have to be registered as a homeschool, which involves creating a homeschool, which there's no way that I would be physically able to do that. You're required to report all of the grades to the state. And, it's kind of a big deal to be registered as homeschool. And that's exactly why I chose GLA, because it's a perfect opportunity for me working full time to have them keep up with all of those requirements. So it's super, super beneficial. Anyway, so just like I think there was a seventh grader last time that eloquently mentioned during the last board meeting that I love having my kids in a safe home environment. We have a farm. They're able to help there, work with the animals all day or in between classes. And as a Christian, I don't want to expose my kids unnecessarily to possible bullying, profanity, violence that sometimes are present in the regular school. So this is a wonderful option for us, for both of my boys, and they love Global Learning Academy. Thank you.
Thank you. And Hedrick. Would still value your opinion.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. So my name is Amanda Hedrick, and I'm a mother of 2 Academy students, and my children were the inaugural children in the Academy's founding in 2022. So at the end of the school year, they were invited, the 2021-22 school year, they were invited to attend the Academy by staff, and it was very strongly encouraged from the regular school. And myself, I was very leery because I thought the idea sounded great, but I was concerned that the execution may not be on par with what I expected. I really thought the school could potentially be a failure, and I was so concerned that I even called and asked if my kids could not be with a certain teacher that was a family friend, because I thought, oh my gosh, that could jeopardize my friendship over a failed school program. But now we're a year and a half in, and I want to say that with confidence, the Academy has exceeded my expectations in every way. I don't think it's far-fetched to say that we, knowing being confined to a classroom for the majority of the school day, it's not the most conducive learning environment. Is it standard procedure? Yes. Is it best? I don't think so. The very learning environments that the Academy offers is one of its greatest strengths. From moving around the building to outside learning centers, they have quest days, which act as mini field trips, and the utilization of the local community have the children engaged and active every single day. On Fridays, they have enrichment days where the students are involved in learning-based clubs that encourage real-world knowledge. They enjoy activities such as map reading, gardening, feeding local wildlife, and yoga. And in addition to the clubs, they have local groups that provide off-site learning activities that are within walking distance. They have done mixed media art with Brushes Studio in downtown Elkin, and they've played instruments and learned about instruments at the Reeves School of Music in just the last couple of months. While my children have participated in music and art classes in the past, this is an opportunity for many students who would not otherwise be able to experience the arts in their local community. My children have grown leaps and bounds during their time at the academy, and their test scores show that, but more importantly, I can see their growth and confidence. The small group work, the learning labs, the enrichments are all allowing children to experience school in a new way, and they are learning so much not to be confined to a desk and chair all day. As a Wilkes County resident, we chose to enroll in Elkin City Schools because we knew that this district prides itself in educational excellence. Offering this program is beneficial to the district as a whole, and in my opinion, we should feel honored to have this as part of Elkin City Schools, and we should do everything in our power to keep it in place. I should hope that the discussion would lead to the expansion of the school and not closure. And I encourage you all to research the social media to see that this is not the typical school. So just look at their Facebook page and see that they're doing so many fun extracurricular activities that are allowing the students to experience school.
Thank you. Heath Foster.
I get to talk a tad slower tonight, so bear with. I'm going to use my 3 minutes this evening to address some things that were discussed at our previous board meeting and also brought up during some very good individual discussions that I've been able to have with some of our Board of Education members. One statement made during our last board meeting mentioned not understanding why a student could play sports and go to pizza parties, which was referring to our social gatherings for GLA, yet not be able to attend school face-to-face. It's essential to recognize that children, just like us adults, have diverse preferences and needs. Engaging in sports and attending social gatherings could be a source of enjoyment, physical activity, and social development for the child. However, when it comes to remote learning, there could be several reasons behind their preference to attend school virtually. Remote learning might offer a more comfortable environment, allowing a child to focus better without distractions that can sometimes arise in any traditional classroom setting. Some children thrive in a quieter, personalized learning space. Additionally, there might be practical considerations such as health concerns and/or family circumstances, some of which you've heard tonight, that make remote learning a more suitable option. It's also crucial to understand and respect these individual preferences, recognizing that a combination of sports, social interactions, and remote learning can very much contribute to a well-rounded and fulfilling educational experience for the child. I believe that parents and guardians should be actively involved in and have a voice in their learners' education. I think that some of us have gotten so caught up in parents' rights that maybe we've forgotten that other parents might want a learning experience for their kids that doesn't match some of your own plans and beliefs. Who are we to judge and/or deny students an education that meets their needs? Rest assured, when it comes time for my little boy, Sawyer Gray Foster, to begin his educational journey, Heath Foster couldn't care any less about what or how you think my child should be educated. It's my family's decision alone to do what's best in that regard, but he will attend Elkin City Schools. So that's his only choice. Another concern that came up during one of my conversations involved whether or not remote learners will be prepared for the real world when the time comes. We're at a point in society now where you can do almost anything remotely. You can obtain your entire education online, high school diploma, associate's, bachelor's, master's, doctorate. You can order your groceries, access your doctors, and most definitely work a job all from the comforts of your own home. What constitutes the real world for students these days can look entirely different than how we saw it growing up. Also, just because some of our students are choosing to work remotely, it does not mean that they wouldn't be successful in the building. We have plenty of students in GLA who would thrive if they came in our doors. However, remote learning has been the best option to fit what their families need at this point in time. Finally, since Elkin City Schools isn't necessarily the most ideal financial situation at this point in time, I wanted to talk about a revised revision to the Board of Education Policy 2610 that will be up for vote at the February 26th meeting. This revision can substantially impact the amount of money that we spend when working with the board attorney. Currently stands that Dr. Richard Brenninger is the only one that works with the attorney. The revised policy will give all board members unfettered access to Ms. Alley when seeking legal advice on or school matters. If we're trying to be more fiscally responsible, we need to keep this to either Dr. Brenninger and/or his vice chair, Ms. Klein-Hexel, because that can easily, and again, I'm having to skip through that. This could easily turn into a 4-figure bill over the course of a weekend of questions, and easily a 5-figure bill if, any of you guys have a boatload of questions to ask her. So thank you for what you do.
Ralph Bashir.
Minutes.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you once again for giving us this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Global Learning Academy. May I make 2 observations in addition to which I previously spoke. The Global Learning Academy has attracted and enrolled a significant number of out-of-district students from across our region and state. These students' enrollments generate state and out-of-district funds that bolster our local funds and budget. Their enrollments also expand support, loyalty, and dedication to our schools and community. Such intangibles can oftentimes prove to be more valuable than simple revenues. Secondly, the Global Learning Academy offers students and faculty and families a much treasured choice in their education. At the last board meeting, it was interesting to hear parents and students speak of how the Global Learning Academy meets their well-defined and justifiable needs. In this era of addressing and supporting parents' rights in the education of their children, does not the Global Academy address their right to choose what they feel is best for their children? I do feel that the Global Learning Academy is an asset to our system and our community. It provides additional revenue to our schools, sets us apart in a most positive way in our region, and can help us better identify and serve our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. While Mr. Bashir is handing that out, it reminds me that, feel free to, address any things that you'd like for us to know or, information. You know, if you want to send those to Dr. Hall, he always makes sure that the board members see this type of written information, a summary maybe of what you said or something you thought maybe, I wish I'd have said this, I forget. You're like me, you get home and go, man, I could have said this or that. Feel free to put that in writing and address that to Dr. Hall with and ask him to send that to the board members, because I know all board members here, we want to make informed decisions. I want to thank you for the public forum. We're going to take a 3-minute recess. We got one online. I told you, remind me to come back to that. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Let's do that.
Lacey Tate would like to speak.
All right.
Going to ask her to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to speak last time, but couldn't get it to work, so I'm glad I was able to make it today. Okay, so many of you guys got to hear my son Braden Tate last meeting for the GLA. Today, I'm going to speak on his behalf. I am Lacey Tate. My son Braden has been with GLA since his 6th grade year. Tonight, I speak to advocate for all the members involved. Please sincerely reconsider any attempts to close the GLA. This is a valuable resource and educational experience for the children. GLA has provided my son and many of his friends with a safe, high-quality middle grade experience. I understand the need to quality control and to quantify all of our teachers and all of our programs to ensure that there is high school and college readiness. Let me assure you that there is an issue with this. As a parent, I have been able to witness drive, intelligence, and strength of character these children have. Some of the best educators that I have personally ever witnessed. My son is serviced by an IEP, and he has been through many schools over the years. This has been the best thing that has ever happened to my son. He has been removed off of writing requirements from his IEP through GLA, removed off of behavior plans, and he is no longer put into rooms where he is being controlled for his behavior. He has not once tried to bolt from a class. I have been able to witness all these children learning and growing. I am lucky. I understand that funding is always a top concern for our education system. There needs to be income, and that is a quintessential worry of all school districts. But let me just say, I know money can be found. There are grants, there are fees, there are things that can be done. Test scores have been quoted. There are no measure of a student's intelligence, their growth, or their true ability as a person. I find it hard to believe that you could just decide to close without trying to nurture and promote the GLA. A farmer does not quit on a crop that's not growing. A doctor does not quit on his patients who are sick. Cops do not stop because crimes continue. We must find and protect GLA and everything that it needs. You see dollars, I see children that are able to make themselves the best self, to do best in their classes. I see children who are happy. The kids that are doing the best, I see kids that are standing up and speaking for what they believe. You want to talk about dollars, but I tell you, losing GLA makes 0 sense.
Thank you. Thank you. Could you hear us? I hope she could hear us. I want to thank her for. Anyone else online, Rick? Again, I want to say thank everyone for coming. That closes the public forum. We're going to have a 3-minute recess. Coming, I thank you for
Yeah.
Make the motion.
being together.
We need a gavel.
I need a gavel. That's all I got.
I'm not.
Thank you for coming. We have one action item tonight. I'll turn the floor over to Dr. Hall.
Yes, sir. The action item we have tonight is concerning the Academy at Elkin. And that I make a motion, that we look to have a mutual termination agreement between Appalachian State and Elkin City Schools with a termination date of June 30th, 2024 for that program.
You heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion to execute the order as Dr. Hall said it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Klein Exel. Any discussion among the board members, this issue? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Announcements. Our regularly scheduled board meeting, Monday, February the 26th, 2024. And I want to thank you again for coming. Is there anyone would like to say any words on behalf of the board? Or any board member like to speak? I can't get the words out right, but anybody want to say anything for the good of the community?
I'll just say, I really appreciate everybody that's come out to speak the past 2 weeks on the GLA. It's been very enlightening. I think it's just helped understand the program more. I want to thank Heath and all the teachers for the time that they've taken with me specifically, with all of my questions. And yeah, I just thank you. Thank all the, not all, but the few children that came up that are in the program to speak. Amazing. I just think that speaks a lot to the program as well. So thank you.
I'd like to say one thing. I'd like to commend Mr. Foster and Mr. Bashir's claim for the good job that they did in getting this information to us. It's extremely helpful.
Thanks for finance too. That's a huge piece of-
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel.
I've been thanking Rachel all day. Every time I see her, I say, I tell you, I appreciate you asking all day. Anyone else? I would also reiterate then, I do think the past few board meetings, I was thinking, reflecting that, this is how a community school system should be. And I appreciate you. It's only as good as participation, and I thank you for participating. It's one of the great things that makes Elkin great, and participation and doing it in a good way, in a constructive way, because we all love our children and want the best for them always. And I thank you so much for you taking your time and coming and be part of that, and being constructive and being loving and being kind, and we thank you so much for that. Is there an entertainment to motion? I'm not supposed to.
No, you're not supposed to answer, but I just wanted to. I'm sorry, it's not time for public comment.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right. Motion by Ms. Clansel. Johnny Blevins, seconds, tongues tied. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Hear none opposed, motion's adjourned. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, look at that.